rest of the day. I'm sure for a lot of us it's going to be busy as well. But thank you all for coming. Uh, but I would like for everyone that may have a question as we move through this process on any particular bill that we'll be discussing today. If there's a question, a comment, or anything that you um, would like to say or ask, I ask that you please speak clearly into your mic because it's been said that those who are listening by via web can't necessarily hear the questions being asked or the answers being given. So I'm just asking if you would to speak clearly and into the mic. And we don't have to be extremely loud, but let's try to speak loud enough so that it can be heard. So thank you all for that. So what we will do is we have several bills before us today, but I asked Senator um, Park, Parker if he would come and speak to us on House Bill number 1052. So we're going to go to the bottom of what we see printed before us on the agenda and allow him the opportunity to explain House Bill 1052. And we also have with us today Mr. Bradley Lum. If there's any other question, we may ask him um, to chime in as well. So thank you, Senator Park, if you would explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
Could you?
Thank you for recognizing me first on this. Greatly appreciated. House Bill 1052 was brought to our attention by Department of Corrections, in particular, McCord Bradley, and his role in some things they're seeing there. One of the most important things that I think we can do when our prison population is, as people are being considered for release, is try to establish them with work skills and things that they need to move from the prison population into the workforce. And so there's some of the work I've been doing with the Office of Workforce Development. We've seen some natural partnerships kind of evolve out of that pursuit, but this is another attempt to try to do this. And so what has been asked by the Department of Corrections is to, within their kind of leadership kind of profile, we're attempting with this to establish in line 118 a Deputy Commissioner for Workforce Development who shall also serve as the Chief Executive Officer of Prison Industries and Director of Prison Agricultural Enterprises. This commissioner shall work in collaboration with the Executive Director of the Office of Workforce Development to implement workforce development programs in the correction system which align with the strategic plan for an integrated workforce system for the state. This person shall be a person with extensive experience in economic, human, and physical resources with an emphasis on corrections or reentry environments. This deputy commissioner shall have at least a bachelor's degree and no less than 8 years of professional experience related to workforce development. Some of the tasks shall be to measure the effectiveness of current workforce development programs in the state correction system with a goal of eliminating any programs which do not result in desired outcomes, to partner with educational institutions to provide information to offenders on workforce development programs available while they're in the correction system, to work with industry, and to develop short and long-term goals as it relates to workforce. In addition, they'll perform a comprehensive review of workforce development in the correction systems to try to move towards getting the funding and other resources that they need for this. We also identified that the Deputy Commissioner of Programs and Education in line 94 also touches vocational rehab, and by striking that in that section D, we'll put that vocational rehab task under this new Deputy Commissioner of Workforce. In analysis of how we set up the Office of Workforce Development, there are programs there for people who have special needs such as vision or hearing problems, and they certainly will need special attention if they're leaving the corrections industry. It's not as easy for them to find employment as someone who has all of their physical needs met. But there's also one other section at the very end at line 228 that just says the same thing, and it says Division of Workforce Development within the department shall have as its chief administrative officer a deputy commissioner for workforce development, who shall be appointed by the commissioner and shall be directly responsible to the commissioner. There is no extra fee for this. There's no extra pen. There's no extra money. Just a realignment within some of the things I think corrections is working to try to achieve to address this, I think, critical need. And I look forward to finding more and more of these opportunities to hopefully make a difference when people are leaving the corrections industry. So I'd be glad to yield for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions to Senator Parker? I'm sorry. If there's none,
Title sufficient to pass as amended.
thank you. The motion is title sufficient, do pass as amended. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Senator. And I just want to say for the record too, thank you, Senator Parker, for working with us on this. And I think that this particular legislation will put Mississippi first in a lot of things. Having a department, having someone that work directly with the Department of Corrections in workforce development is something I don't think it's been done anywhere. So this is going to be good for our prison system and the state of Mississippi, so that we are trying to find innovative ways to help reduce our recidivism rate. And I think this is one way to do it on the front end instead of waiting till after the person has been released or close to being released, but to start working on it as soon as possible. So thank you, Senator, for working with us on this. Thank you. Right, the next item, we'll go back to the top of the agenda, and House Bill 863 is the Mississippi Prison Industry Act of 1990, and this is bringing forth some code sections to make some changes there as well. And what you all have noticed is there are several bills that we have on here that are similar, but we need all of these to be able to get to the ultimate goal where we're trying to get to. And what 863 does is basically it's a recommendation from Superior Force where we would use the combination of MPIC or MAC and the Department of Corrections to be under one umbrella to basically work together. And I think Mr. Bradley Lum is here to give us a brief explanation of what we are doing here. Is that correct, Mr. Lum? Yes, sir. If you don't mind, would you come and address the committee, please? And again, Mr. Lum, I will need you to speak a little bit louder and clearly into the mic so that those who are watching can hear. Thank you.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to speak on this bill. What this does, as you just heard in House Bill 1052, creating that role that the commissioner would have oversight of and put that position in place. There's some changes from a prison industry standpoint that need to take place from a governing structure for the commissioner to have that oversight. And really what this bill would do would be to make some corrections and address some things in there that would give the commissioner governing authority over that, over MAGCOR, over prison industry, and then allow for the existing infrastructure that's in place to become more of an advisory board so that we can accomplish the goals that we need to accomplish from the standpoint of aligning those two things together. The other piece to that is it would allow for the agricultural exemption that currently exists within that entity to no longer be there, so that the commissioner would have the authority to allow the workforce opportunity to exist in our agricultural activities as well. So that's really what it would do, would really further align it and make sure that the pieces are all in place to ensure that the commissioner has governing oversight over all of the prison industry.
Thank you, Mr. Lum. Is there any questions on the bill? Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is, right now, how is it done?
So we are one of only a few states that MAGCOR, as we go by now, but Mississippi Prison Industries under the Mississippi Prison Industries Act is a nonprofit corporation. So this would align MAGCOR under the commissioner, so that the commissioner now would have oversight over that, and that, you know, what happens a lot of times because of the way that the nature of the two entities is, if MDOC is operating efficiently, then MAGCOR probably suffers from that, and if MAGCOR is operating more efficiently, then MDOC probably suffers from that. So this aligns the both so that we're together, and when I'm speaking on behalf of the commissioner and not in an isolated role independent of the Department of Corrections.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? No other questions? Thank you. The motion is titled sufficient due pass as amended. All in favor, let it be number saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes. Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is we will go down to item 919, House Bill 919, and this is required establishment of MDOC to lease certain certain agricultural equipment for that purpose at the Department of Corrections. And I see the commissioner is here, but this is a real simple bill there. And I would, Commissioner, if you would briefly give an explanation to this body as to the purpose of this piece of legislation.
This legislation would allow us, and as we move forward with combining us with MPIC, it would allow us to lease farm equipment rather than have to rent the farm equipment, which would give us a real break in that's what the industry does at this time. And so that would enable us to do that. And that's why we hope that you'll go ahead and pass this bill so we can lease our equipment. It's too expensive to own, and the industry has gone to leasing throughout the Delta and throughout agriculture, because a combine could cost as much as $300,000, and we don't want to put the cash on it. We want to lease it and then pass it on. Stopped a lot of repairs and so forth because you have new equipment. That's what you lease, so you save a lot of money. Get your crop harvested on time. Don't lose it to the rain and the weather. So it's a good thing.
Thank you, Commissioner. But I do have an amendment, Commissioner, and Mr. Ethan, would you please explain the amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment is to line 20, and it would just from after the word policy, it would strike which may exempt from bid requirements and insert the word for in lieu of that language. So it would read on line 20, a leasing policy for agricultural equipment. And that way DFA would establish a policy that would allow MDOC to lease the equipment. It would also, the amendment also puts in a reverse repealer.
Is there any questions?
Question as to the amendment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Setting up a leasing policy and from a farming standpoint, every manufacturer may not have every piece of equipment that you need. I guess we'll leave that to them on the policy, but I assume people would want to competitively bid for the right to lease the equipment to the department. We're not taking that away. Does your amendment kind of address that? Is that the purpose of that amendment?
I think that is. It just leaves it with DFA.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, I get a motion for that.
Yes, I motion to adopt the amendment.
Motion that we adopt the amendment. All in favor, let it be number saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is there any questions on the bill? If not, Mr. Sparks.
Title sufficient due pass as amended.
Thank you. The motion is title due pass as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, let it be number saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. The next item on the agenda we will take up today is the Inmate Welfare Fund. And you know, there's been several times that we have engaged in the Inmate Welfare Fund, and I have the commissioner here to explain that one as well. But basically, this will be allowing the commissioner to use some of the monies from the Inmate Welfare Fund to pay certain of those who are incarcerated with the Department of Corrections for the work that they do. So, Commissioner, if you would Could you explain that?
Yes, it's part of the reentry programs. It's important that we give the inmate an incentive to work, and we're talking about a nickel to 50 cents an hour. For instance, 30 cents an hour, it would equal $50 a month. And so what we're doing is we're using inmate teachers exclusively almost, but what happens is if we give you a job, we can require you to get up out of bed and go to work and learn to have work ethic. Right now, we don't have any way to say, hey, you got a job, you got to go to work, because nobody has to work because you don't pay them. So we don't want to be in involuntary servitude or anything. We want to pay them something so when they do work that they get a reward. And that's how the American way is. So this way we can pay the inmates. We wanted to set aside approximately $1 million from the welfare fund to have every inmate have a job unless you're in the hospital or unless you're in the cell block. So this is really to teach work ethic, and it's really important that we do this. Most other states do this, and so this is a good thing, and we really hope that we can get this passed.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any questions to the Commissioner? Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, how much money are we talking about paying?
How much money we're talking about? The total amount, we would set aside $1 million, but we would have our pay scale developed, and it would be from a nickel to 50 cents an hour at this point. But as we improve and increase our productivity, and we intend to move forward with big time farming on parkland and so forth rather than leasing the land. And so we would generate more revenue, and if we generate more revenue and get all our reentry equipment in place, we would have more revenue then to pay the inmates. So we can see that it would go up. This is a start, but we need to start somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any other questions to the Commissioner? Any other questions to the Commissioner? If not, I need a motion. Thank you. The motion is titled sufficient. Titled sufficient to pass. Any questions? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes. Thank you. Next one that we have is House Bill 936, and I'm going to ask Senator Sparks to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 936 addresses two issues that we separated in two bills on our end. The first issue addresses that the Department of Corrections may provide hospice care services to inmates that are confined in the facilities under the jurisdiction of the department without a license, I believe. And of course, Commissioner Kane being here, that's in Section 2. I believe he had success with this program in other facilities where we have given hospice care inside the facility with other inmates being involved, or even, some nursing people, but that's primarily dealing with people inside the confines of a facility, the Department of Corrections. The second part of the bill deals with a separate bill we also believe passed out of this chamber, with special care facilities for paroled inmates. So the first issue is dealing with hospice care. The second issue is dealing with parole based on medically fragile or frail, rather, people. And you will see in line 153, they define what a special care facility is, and that it is for medically frail paroled inmates. These are people who would receive parole not so much based on typical parole board standards, but on a very complex issue medically, that they have been deemed medically frail. If you look to line 553, you see the definitions of medically frail. For the purposes of this subsection, it means an individual who's a minimal threat to society because or as a result of the medical condition. Daily activities of living is significantly impaired and may have limited mobility, and as a result, one of the more following conditions is not expected to recover. And we see that a disabling mental disorder, including dementia, Alzheimer's, serious complex medical condition, and physical disability. Now, this does not apply to anyone who has a capital punishment sentence. It does not apply to anyone who has been convicted of a criminal sex offense. And of course, the parole board is also determining that the person is not a risk to the public. Now, there's a couple of things I do expect and intend for this bill to go to conference. First of all, because they put two things together in one bill to make sure that we get this handled properly. I also would have an amendment that I would offer on line 170, and I want to check with legal to make sure what I'm saying is correct. There may be up to 3 facilities designated in each public service commissioner district. If the Supreme Court districts mirror the public service commissioner district, I would insert Supreme Court districts instead of public service commissioner. I think it still covers the same territory. Okay, I would make that amendment and or would make a motion to make that amendment at the proper time. That it's the 3 facilities. My intent is to cover the same geographic area, not change that, but I think we would be better off to use Supreme Court districts.
Okay.
I would yield any questions on the amendment, I guess, first, if that's proper, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any questions on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, help me understand why you want to change it, Senator, from Public Service Commission to Supreme Court.
Because the Supreme Court of the state of Mississippi is constitutionally going to be there. I don't know that the public service commissioner districts will always be there. We change forms of government, whether it's Department of Transportation, public service commissioner. I just think it's a little risky to use something that may change as a form of government. We know they're not going to eliminate Supreme Court districts.
And
It's
also,
similar to the Initiative 65.
I was going to bring that up, but yes, Chairman Wiggins, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Thank you.
thank you. Is there any other questions on the amendment?
I move for passage of the amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the amendment? All in favor, that be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Now we're back on the original bill. Senator Wiggins.
I have an amendment too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
My amendment is simply to remove the reverse repealer. That's my amendment.
A question on the amendment.
Go ahead, Senator.
If we remove the reverse repealer and the bill goes back to the House and they adopt the one change we've made, it's gone.
Concur, it goes to the governor.
Okay. I would like this bill to go to conference personally. I think that we had a problem last year when 2 things got combined. We've done the same thing again this year. I think it would be good to go to conference to make sure there's no unintended consequences since it's a single referred this
If
year.
I may respond to that, that's why we want to do it. And I'll be honest, that was the problem last year. It got mixed up, and if we goes to conference, the 2 sections of this bill have been passed by this chamber. They've been passed by the House. So there's really no reason for a conference, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman. And all the House will have to do is concur. And my guess is, for the reasons that the amendment was taken to the Supreme Court, and I think that's a good amendment. So I think we're playing with fire if we do that.
The only thing I would say, I do not believe this is a mirror image bill of what the Senate sent on either issue. I may be incorrect on that. That's my only concern is, and I certainly can have time to review it before we take it up on the floor. But that's the.
Well, we can always put it back in on the floor if that's the case.
We can take it out on the floor too, though, can't we?
It's easier in the committee to take one out from it.
Okay.
Plus,
Is it?
It doesn't-
I apologize. Okay. Well, then
So there is an amendment from Senator Wiggins that his amendment is to take away the reverse repealer. So all in favor of his amendment, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
no.
By show of hands, All in favor of Senator Wiggins' amendment, let it be known by the raising of your hand. Opposed? The amendment failed. Back on the bill. Any other discussion on the bill? If not, need a motion.
Title sufficient do pass as amended.
Motion is title sufficient do pass as amended. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes, carried. I think that's all that we had on the agenda for today. We will meet on Monday. I haven't got a time yet, but I will let you all know beforehand what time we will meet Monday. We will take up one item on Monday. We'll take this item up and we should be done with corrections here. But thank you all again for coming today. And thank you all for coming and presenting with us as well. So at this time I need rise and report. Thank you.